You pay for the ticket, but at the end of the day, they don't know your name. They're just glad that you're here. If you're not there, it doesn't matter to them. They also argue that you submit your legacy in these bowl games. Does anybody care that Kenny Pickett didn't play in the Peach Bowl or Kenneth Walker didn't play in the Peach Bowl? No. No, they don't. What people care about at Pittsburgh is that Kenny Pickett was the first, led Pitt to be the first team not named Clemson to win at the ACC championship. NFL executives said that the Senior Bowl, the Reese Senior Bowl, is more of a chance for us to look at the players from the conferences like the MAC or the USA or the FCS level at this. It's more for the star players to get a jump start on talking to these NFL executives. Why would we compare the Reese Senior Bowl, a non-contact bowl senior game, to a game like the Peach Bowl or the Rose Bowl that you can pretty much go in and play like any other regular season game? The NFL, they want those star players healthy. So why would players risk their lives and risk their careers going and playing in a game that means nothing? At the end of the day, this is a decision. You know, coaches in the NFL, one of my esteemed colleagues said that they look down on these players. Why did Kayvon Thibodeau, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Kenneth Walker, Kenny Pickett, and many of the other first-round draft picks still go in the first round if they opted out of the bowl game? I thought coaches looked down on them.
In response to my opponents, I heard that Jake Butt gave a statement about the NFL and how it's a cutthroat business. Jake Butt also said if he had a chance to do it differently, he wouldn't. He would still play in that bowl game, and he would still give it all for his team. Then my opponent also said that the Senior Bowl is a non-contact game, which is a full-speed contact game with almost all 32 teams watching. So when is it too much? What's stopping a first-round receiver, great receiver? This team goes 0-2, don't have a chance to make the playoffs. I'm just going to sit out. Why risk getting injured? When I already have a first-round grade, I'm a lock. Guys like Jameson Williams, who got hurt in the bowl game, was a first-round draft pick. He was a first-round draft pick, regardless if he played or not. Same with the guys that they mentioned: Kenny Pickett, Kenneth Walker. All those guys are first-round draft picks, whether they played or not. So saying that it boosted their draft stock not playing, I think is not the truth. And then we're talking about second-string guys. Now with the transfer portal, second-string guys are dipping. They're going to a new school, going to be the guy. So you might not even have that second string, that third string guy there when you're a star player outside. So that's making it hard for the coaches to even get a team together. We're not here to argue to ban opting out. We're arguing is it ethical? And to me, it is not ethical to leave your team high and dry and thinking about yourself. Why is the Senior Bowl more important to play in than the last time you play with your brothers? Also, players also be compensated. So guys like Kenny Pickett probably had an NIL deal before he even sat out that game. Guys like that. And then now it's probably you can use that to more of an incentive to games like the Cheez-It Bowl. You tell Cheez-It, hey, sponsor me this game, and I'll play your bowl game. Now you can earn revenue from playing in that bowl game, because if you're worried about the chances of making money at the next level. Also talked about NFL covered injuries and gets compensation. Well, the average NFL career is 3.5 years. You do not get compensation from the NFL until after the 5th year of playing. So you just can't go to the NFL and then gain compensation. You can get injured at any time. So what if you get injured, you tweak your hamstring in camp and you are the first round running back or whatever position? Do you sit out? Do you not risk any more injury throughout the whole season? My opponents also talked about Jackson Smith and Jigba, who set a national record in his bowl game. Jackson Smith and Jigba has yet to play a game for Ohio State this season. Is it because he is injured, or is it because he's saving the draft stock? Will we see that trend pick up speed in these next couple of years when guys have cemented themselves their previous year when they could not leave, and then sit out the next year to save their draft stock?
The love of the game. College players play for the love of the game, and they truly love the sport, which is why they decided to play college sport. The starters that are in the top few percent that continue their career to the NFL are the starters. Like, those players that do go to the NFL are the starters. They're not the second string or the third string. And the NFL league does need players. It is not selfish, and it is in the best interest of the athlete, team, and teammates, because they love the game so much, they're sacrificing missing the one game, the bowl game, to continue their love for the game in the long run, and continue their love playing for the next 10 years in the NFL. And as a fan, how would you feel that your favorite college player gets a career-ending injury, an injury that prohibits them to get drafted or play, and they no longer get to enjoy supporting or watching their favorite player on the NFL team? And they don't get to say that they watched them as a freshman grow up into a senior and get to go and have an NFL deal. True fans support their favorite player regardless, because when their favorite player opts out, they do this so they can get drafted. They should be excited for their favorite player is continuing their career. For fans that are getting mad that their favorite player is not playing in the bowl game that they paid for, that is selfish, and that is exhibiting fake fan behavior. That shows the fan does not truly care about that favorite athlete's future. It does not truly care to see them play even longer in the NFL. My esteemed colleague also spoke about NIL deals. However, the few percent of the athletes who have NIL deals are the starters and the players who play all the time. These NIL deals are for college and players in college that are not exiting college. And those players who opt out and give the second or third string players without the NIL deal an opportunity to play and perform, as well as catch the eye of people who want to sponsor them and give them a chance to get NIL deals and be starters for the future. Thank you.
My first point I would like to make is earlier in the argument, my colleague said that there were indeed 3 players who sat out of a bowl game, got drafted, and then got hurt. The team that gets you, you're still in the first round. You're still benefiting the NFL teams, but not the bowl games. Secondly, our argument today is not about banning this and taking your freedom away, but our argument is whether or not it is ethical. I never said that I'm going to create a law that said that you no longer can opt out of bowl games. That was never our point. And then you just said that you don't care about the fans, but you want my money to pay for your NIL deal. I don't understand what you want from that, but personally, if you don't want me to support you, then don't come asking for my money. Don't come asking me to pay for you to survive in college. And then you also said that once you get to the NFL, then you care about your fans. Then you care whether or not your fans are going to show up. So which one is it? Do you care about the fans? Do you not care about the fans? Is it only the money? Is it about freedom? Is it about rights? What's it about? And then my colleagues also said you're playing for the love of the game. If you love the game so much, why would you opt out of a game? Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And then, does freedom remove the commitment that you made to your team? You signed up to play a sport. You signed up to agree to such things. At the same time, you can't live in fear. If you're going to live up in fear and you're going to be afraid of getting injured, then why do you leave your house in the morning? If you're going to be afraid of that, then why are you driving a car? More people die in car wrecks than they get injured on a football field. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Thank you.
Okay, in the interest of time, we're gonna go straight into the closes by the different teams.
I want to begin my closing by again thanking you guys so much for coming out and engaging in our debate. We appreciate your time and we want to take that into consideration. As we have said at the beginning, we have argued for opting out for 3 reasons. One, it is ethically good and right for the interests of the athletes to allow opting out. Second, it is ethically right and good in the interests of the NFL. Third, it is ethically good because it allows others to play. And fourth, it is ethically good because it is based upon freedoms. I'll begin going through those as well as engaging in the rebuttal. At the beginning, we talked about how it is ethically good and right in the interests of the athlete. Joe Banner, a former NFL president and CEO, said, "I struggle to understand why those who are criticizing these players, schools, networks, announcers, no one would be covering or broadcasting these games unless there was money to be made. To ask players to play for free and risk their NFL careers, ask them to do something no one else would do. No player will throw their futures on the line for the potential ability to play in one game." Now, our esteemed colleagues have mentioned the fact that we should be not maybe risk averse. In the interest of this debate, I will not go too deep into that. However, I would like to mention that no athlete would play Russian roulette because they're not afraid of the risk. And it just makes no sense to say that we should be running in the face of risks and engaging in bowl games that we don't necessarily have to engage in. The athletes must consider their own futures. In the instance of Nick Bosa and others, even taking a year off may actually benefit their careers. Nick Bosa withdrew from his entire season following an injury to rehab and prepare for the draft. His first year, he was named Defensive Rookie of the Year. Yes, it may not boost an athlete's draft stock to sit out, but it certainly doesn't stop them from being drafted. In fact, it likely keeps them draftable instead of injured, like Jake Butt. This is a guaranteed draft instead of a potential injury. Opting out is ethically good and right in the interests of the NFL. It allows the NFL teams to get players who desire to work for them. Consider a real-life scenario. A tree logger has a contract with 2 weeks left that allows him to opt out of the last 2 weeks so long as he recognizes he won't be paid for them, he won't get any recognition for them, or admiration. A company comes along that desperately needs an employee and decides to offer him a deal so long as he is healthy. Would the tree logger work for 2 weeks, though he is entirely allowed to sit out? No. Would someone claim that the tree logger should be forced to work even though the company really wants him as an employee and he's leaving anyways? No. Nowhere else in society is this frowned upon except in the NCAA. Thirdly, opting out is ethically good because it allows others to play. As we have said before, Jackson Smith set the FBS bowl game in the Ohio State record for most receiving yards. He was overlooked, and yet because others stepped down, it allowed the next man up mentality to truly be tested. You see, these players are choosing to opt out of only the bowl games, not the championship games. At the beginning of the season, some players may not be ready, but allowing them the option to participate in a bowl game by stepping out can help prepare them for the next season. Perhaps Jackson may not be playing this year, but it is not because he didn't get to prove himself on the field last year. Lastly, opting out is ethically right and good based on freedoms. To deny opting out is against the moral and ethical framework of our nation. Should a rare occurrence happen where someone makes an opting out choice based purely on selfish motives, it should still be their prerogative to do so. Now, my colleagues have said that they're not arguing for the banning of opting out, they are only arguing that it is unethical. I don't know any society where they would permit unethical practices to be practiced. It simply makes no sense. Murder is unethical, therefore it is banned. Stealing is unethical, therefore it is banned. Opting out is not unethical, therefore it should not be banned.
To begin, I just want to thank every single one of you guys for being here and attending the debate. My fellow colleagues and I have worked diligently throughout the entire semester, not just the past couple weeks, to learn about ethics. We've been discussing the ethical principles in the world of sports today. And with that said, the study of ethics and morality does not always produce conclusive answers. And this can be frustrating for some because there are a variety of competing ethical theories and none without some weakness. No action can be declared as absolutely correct or incorrect. Nevertheless, through moral analysis, an appeal to ethical principles can be made and certain decisions may be deemed more justifiable than others. With that said, today we dove into the facts and specific topics of bowl game and championship game decisions of our college athletes. Also, to add in there, Jackson Smith led his team in the statistical category prior to any bowl game. Anyways, as me and my fellow colleagues mentioned earlier in our opening statements, that if and when an athlete experiences an injury prior to draft, there's a loss of value policy as that provides financial protection. Like my colleague mentioned, over 90% of these athletes are insured and receive financial compensation for those injuries. This protects the millions of dollars and provides compensation for the athlete in the event of an injury prior to the draft. We also mentioned coaches' decisions and that kind of topic. Well, coaches coach and players are the ones playing the game. This example is inadequate, seeing as the main focus of our opponent's arguments mentioned injury and team success. First, coaches have less of an impact or less of a direct impact on a game than any player ever will. For example, a coach can make a bad call, but a star player, that of Jackson Smith, can make the play, regardless of whatever call was called. Moreover, if an injury is the topic of discussion, it would be inappropriate to compare a coach's decisions to a player, as the risk is much higher for a player, seeing as they are actually playing the game. One of my opposing classmates discussed the point that nowadays bowl games are pointless, and why would one game make a difference? If that is the mindset we choose to acquire, then I could argue that none of the games, even in the regular season, are important, and every senior with a high projected draft stock shouldn't play. So what are we teaching our student athletes? We are in an ethics debate, not a financial stability seminar. We are here to discuss what is ethical for our athletes rather than what is profitable. We are not discussing freedom. We are not discussing a league's opinion or a league's success. We are not discussing coaches' opinions. We are certainly not discussing a dollar sign. We are discussing what is ethically appropriate for the player. To wrap all of this up, everything written in the Bible goes against the teaching of selfishness. Here at North Greenville University, we follow Christian ideologies, ethics, and morals. For as Philippians 2, verses 2 through 3 tell us, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but to each of you of the interest of others. Thank you.
Okay, we will now open up the floor to questions for the different teams. If you want to address a question to some individually, I'll have them take the microphone and they can answer the question for you. Questions? Hopefully the people in the class have questions. Dr. Briggs?
Do I need the mic or not?
No.
Loud, really loud. Deep. I want to take a purely faith-based perspective on this discussion. Paul writes in the New Testament that all things are lawful, but not everything is beneficial or edifiable to us. It might be lawful to opt out, but that doesn't mean in God's eyes it's the right thing to do, in spite of the fact it's lawful. In the kingdom of God, the notion of lawfulness is one of the bottom rungs we stand on. And we as faith-based community must rise so far above and beyond it. When Jesus came onto the scene, he tried to redefine life for the Israelite community. And he said, I want you to know, let your yes be yes, and your no be no. And he went on to describe that by saying it was more important for him, for us to live up to our commitments, than it is for the implications or applications derived from that. I believe that if a coach extends a scholarship to an athlete and makes a commitment, and the athlete agrees to that, there's mutual assent and a commitment we have, and we must fulfill that. Otherwise, we can't bank on it. In spite of the fact that there are great financial implications or the potential of injury, Isn't it true that the Lord is the Lord of our lives? Don't you follow his lead of the Holy Spirit? The Proverbs says, the horse is made ready for battle, but it's the Lord who decides the victory. The Proverbs says, the lot is cast, but every decision is the Lord's decision. I'm here to tell you today that God gives permission for some to go to the NFL, and he doesn't give permission for others to go to the NFL. Some stars were never meant to go to the NFL, and God will make sure they don't. Some injured players were meant to go to the NFL, and he will make sure he gets there. That's how he operates in the kingdom of God. The last thing I want to say is this. Gotta gather my thoughts here. I believe firmly, according to the Proverbs, a good name is more desired than riches. We must live righteously and honorably, above and beyond anything else. And in the kingdom of God, that is more important, and he expects that of us. So in spite of any financial implications or applications, if you make a commitment, I guarantee you in God's eyes, you need to fulfill that. He's greatly honored by that. And that's more value to him than any gain you could have or the implications of loss from that. And that's my perspective from the faith-based perspective.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that to attention, Dr. Briggs. I very much appreciate that. I'm actually very passionate about theology as well. If any of you guys are on campus Tuesday nights, FCA would love to see you guys there. I am excited to engage in this. So first you mentioned, I think out of all of your points, I want to focus on the very first one was yes be yes, no be no. I think that was one that stuck out to me the most at the very beginning. And obviously not wanting to be selfish as well, which I will actually cover at the very last portion of that. But let your yes be yes or your no be no. Absolutely, if a coach offers a scholarship and the player accepts that scholarship, says I will play for the entire season, then he should play for the entire season from a faith-based perspective. Yes, it may be lawful for him to opt out. However, if he has agreed to play for the entire season and has said and verbally expressed, I will play for a bowl game, by all means, please play for a bowl game. However, let's say that he's in the coach's office and he says, absolutely, I accept your offer, I will play for the entire season. However, depending on how good I am, I may end up going to the NFL. I may be drafted. I cannot promise you that I will be able to play for you in a bowl game. If that is what he has said, then he is to adhere to his commitment in the season. However, he has not given any yes towards the bowl game. So I would say that that is something that should be taken into consideration. Athletes should be careful about the way they word things. However, I don't think that yes be yes and no be no negates bowl game opting out. Secondly, you mentioned God's sovereignty. God is sovereign and God can choose absolutely to work mighty miracles in injured athletes and to send them to the NFL. He can choose to work mighty miracles in phenomenal athletes and choose to humble them by making them a car salesman or a janitor or whatever other occupation they may end up choosing. However, to overemphasize God's sovereignty and to underemphasize our responsibility would be a mistake. I can absolutely say that it may be God's sovereign will that I live to be 55 years old. It does not mean that I'm going to cross the road when there is a red light. In the same way, I think that it would be unwise for a player to potentially participate in a bowl game if they believe that it is their responsibility to take care of their body and to be able to be prepared for the draft. Talking about good names, having a good name is more desirable than anything else. Absolutely, and this again goes back to the motives for opting out. As I mentioned in the debate, there are unethical reasons for opting out, absolutely. However, my team, I think, has tried to demonstrate that there are ethical reasons for opting out as well. And I think among those are the desire to provide for one's family. So one may opt out because they desire to be drafted in the NFL to receive compensation for their participation and to eventually provide for their family. There are multiple NFL players who have come from rags to riches. And I think even to take Philippians 2:2-3 and build off of that, let's add the fourth verse there. At the very beginning it says, or verse 3, it says, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Verse 4 says, let each of you not only look to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. So number one, it is unbiblical for us to completely remove our interests and desires and only focus on other interests and desires. Otherwise, Paul would have said, don't look to your own interests at all. He says, look not only to your own interests. Therefore, we should look to our own interests. However, also we should look to the interests of others. And I think in the instance of opting out for the well-being of one's family, for the well-being of one's future provision for family, for all those other opportunities, I think that that is absolutely a worthy and admirable thing to strive for. So that's how I would engage in that point. But I appreciate you very much for bringing that up. Thank you.
Other questions? Comments?
Would it be ethical then for the university to ask the student athlete to repay their portion of grant and aid that they, to be fair, didn't earn because they didn't play in all of the contests that the university then paid for.
Are you asking specifically me, or I don't want to take up that
Whoever
microphone?
wants to talk into the mic, I don't care.
Okay. Do you guys want to answer this? Then I would say again, that goes back to the agreement. So if the coach says, hey, we'll give you this much money for the season, if you participate in the bowl game, you have a full ride. But if you don't, then we're gonna have to ask you to pay that back. That again goes back to the agreement.
Those conversations don't happen. A student athlete gets a grant and aid, and football, we use the case of football as a head count sport. Full tuition, room, board, books, and fees, the grant and aid, and now we can cost of living allowance, right?
Absolutely.
If they qualify for a bowl game, then that is part of the season, is it not?
To reinforce what you're saying, prior to every season, prior to every semester, a player on scholarship is obligated to sign paperwork stating that. When you go in to play out of high school to play college football, you sign a national letter of intent. So that basically is, you're not selling yourself, but you are giving your obligations to the university and to the athletic department. Given whatever sport, I mean, that's any sport, but talking about football, yes, from experience, you sign that paper every semester, every year. It doesn't matter what happens in the season, after the season, you sign that paper and you're obligated to fulfill those requirements.
Yeah, and back to the original question you asked, I don't think that's an awful idea, but at the end of the day, if that's what the university deems fit to, hey, give me that money back for that one game, that's fine. And I think a lot of people in here would agree with me. If that's what it takes for the situation to be ethical in everyone's eyes, then if I'm a first round projected athlete, I'll give you back my $5,000 that playing in that game's worth if I can go sign the $10 million signing bonus when I get drafted 5th overall. So if that's the way we want to ethically look at it, I think that's fine. I don't have a disagree.
And just for notice, that is a revision of opting out, not a banning of opting out, nor a decision that it's unethical.
Here's what I found.
And also to speak on it, also to touch on, if we're gonna say opting out of bowl games, then I think it will also lead to opting out of conference championships, because conference championships are not permitted in the season. It is also an extra game that you've earned the right to play. Because say if you are a LSU or a Clemson fan or NC fan, you're not playing to go to the playoffs. You're playing to win a championship, so as the bowl games, you win bowl championships. So is it gonna start to guys stop playing in conference championships because it's not obligated? It's not part of the season, 12-game season.
I have a question. So, like, kind of a two-part question. First, you said, like, something about crossing the road with the red light. I'm pretty sure you would cross the road when there's a red light. But, on a more serious note, 3 out of 4 of you at that table are athletes. And I'll say you too, Mitchell, because you're with us. Let's say y'all all in portion to get drafted in MLB, play for the women's national team, but that required you to stop playing at North Greenville for, let's say, the conference championship game for the Gulf South Conference, Carolinas. I'm just curious, would you do it? Because I don't know. I'm just curious to see if y'all would do it or not. If y'all would get up in front of your team and say, I'm gonna play. I mean, because if you say you would, you would tell them that, then you would think it was ethical, and then you would have no bearing saying no. I don't know any of this. I'm not a sport ranking major.
Well, why not?
Response?
I love my team with my entire heart. That is why I have chosen to enter with my team for the spring, as well as become the graduate assistant for the next 1.5 to 2 years, as well as pursue being an assistant coach for the university. However, if that opportunity arose and I was faced with playing in the conference championship or having to go to the national team, my team, the way that we operate is there have been instances whenever one of us has felt that they are not mentally prepared for that game, their mind is on another matter, or that they are having an off day. For an example, that player that is having the off day, they don't try and stick it out because they know that the person that is behind them is ready to step in and ready to fill their shoes always, no matter what. And for an example, we did have a conference championship a few weeks ago, and one of our players who is a senior and took her 5th year actually, that was her possibly last ever game she would ever play. Instead of her starting and playing that game, she did feel off, and in fact she gave it to the freshman, and the freshman was able to step up, and it was not on the coach's radar, and so that way she stepped up and impressed the coaches, and now she's a starter for the next year. So, and if I were given the opportunity, I would definitely give it to, whatever goalkeeper is behind me, and whenever I get to be on the women's national team, receiving that amount of money and winning World Cups year after year, I would be able to give the money back to the university that I love. So, thank you.
Yeah, and great question. And I think it's a lot deeper than what we're kind of talking about here too, because I think there's also a level of respect that goes both ways. If, say I were to look at some of my teammates and say, guys, I'm opting out, and I to further my chances to be able to play in the NFL and the MLB. There's a mutual level of respect that at least what we've built here at NGU, and I believe that's why we're a good baseball team, that we have a mutual respect for each other. If John Mike came up to me and told me, I'm gonna sit out because the Padres told me, and they're gonna take me first overall, we'll say. As his friend and as a guy who loves him, I'm gonna be like, you know what, like, I understand, because I want the best for you as well. So, to say, like, yes, there might be some guys on the team that would be upset with that decision because it might lower our chances to win that game. I think of a true bond of brothers who understand the bigger picture, that NGU baseball is not the final thing in life, and it's not the biggest area of life. There's an opportunity for, the 0.01% that we could send someone from our team to the MLB that we've only done once before. I think our team would understand and have a mutual respect for him in that decision. We would back him and kind of pull together as a brotherhood and be like, let's win this game for him, win this game, win this national championship for him, and then send him off to the big leagues, hopefully right after that.
And so, no, I don't play a sport, and but honestly, the fact I'm on the pro side just goes against everything I believe as a fan. I don't actually think that opting out is ethical, or so it's kind of hard for me to like find a point to talk about. But it's growing up as playing sports and stuff. The players that you play with, they always want the best for you, and you vice versa. So I think kind of goes back to what Jake said. There's a lot of respect when you play any kind of sport, whether it's football, soccer, baseball, lacrosse, whatever. You always want the best for your brother, your sister, whoever, whatever team you're on. You always want the best for them, and at the end of the day, that's what, as a teammate, that you look for. That's why you give your 100%, because you want to be the best for them. Honestly, if I was going to opt out, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on in your mind. That's why coaches that have other jobs, you saw this a few years ago with Lane Kiffin, not coaching the national championship for Alabama because he had so much on his mind going to take over the program at Ole Miss. You see that with coaches and stuff. You kind of see that with players too, because for them, they want to be fully engaged in the game when they go out there and play. And so when they see that lack of focus in themselves, that's when they give up their spot for others. And so that's kind of where I stand on it. I don't necessarily agree that players should opt out. I know my favorite college team this year, there's going to be a few players that I really enjoy watching that's going to opt out. But I understand you know, their look on it, and I understand that their teammates want the best for them. And their coaches too. A lot of the coaches will advise players to opt out, you know, to not play in these, you know, extra games and stuff. So.
I'll keep it fairly brief because I know you guys have probably heard from me a lot already, so I'm tired of my voice. But I will say that one thing I enjoy just about this question is that we have the freedom to discuss it rather than it being this deemed unethical across the board. However, me personally, let's say that I have a redshirt freshman behind me, and that's nothing, nobody else, right? Like I'm gonna decide to play that game because I know that my team will majorly suffer without me. However, if I know the next man up is gonna be pretty good, he's his 4th year here, he has a lot of experience under his belt, very close relationship, then I would be comfortable with opting out because again, this is something that speaks highly of the program. This is a huge opportunity for me. I think my team would respect that. So a lot of different factors can go into it, right? Like if my family is rich, I'm gonna take over their business. I don't wanna pursue a career in the NFL, even though I have one on the line, then yeah, I'm gonna play my last college game and then I'm gonna go work with my family. Let's say that I grew up in a really poor home and I want a guaranteed offer to play in the NFL as a draft prospect. Then yes, I'm going to choose to opt out, even if maybe the next man up is someone who's not adequately equipped because I want to care for my family. So all these different reasons can go into it. I think me personally right now with where the team is at, if Dalton McKintrick was behind me at left tackle and I had an opportunity to go play in the NFL, then absolutely I would opt out because he's a dog. He's fantastic. That's my answer.
Okay, I think we've seen a pretty good debate tonight. It's good to be back doing this again. We will be back same time next year, hopefully with some people sitting in this room, sitting on the stage. So let's thank the groups for their performance tonight. As I said, these meetings will become mandatory next spring. Dr. Nelson will have more information on this as we go. We will add course credit to the meetings starting in January. So we'll have more on that as we go along. So everybody has a very Merry Christmas. We'll see everybody back in January if I don't see you in class in the next couple of days. Thanks for coming out tonight.